Welcome to episode 134 of the Scarlet Faithful podcast. I'm Aaron Brightman, coming to you on a Saturday night. I wanted to discuss Greg Schiano in terms of his reaction and press conference following the first scrimmage. Did a podcast interpreting his comments initially at the start of training camp about a week and a half ago, and I thought Saturday's comments were very telling. I appreciated his candidness. It was nice to see him a little bit more raw and unplugged. Obviously, he's always going to be measured to a large degree, but I thought that for those that have seen him at press conferences for so many years, this one was a little different. I really thought it was different. It was, I don't want to say negative, but it certainly wasn't optimistic. And, it's their week and a half into camp. It's a first scrimmage. There's two more to go. There's still a good amount of time left in training camp. But I just thought, aside from just the quotes that Schiano gave, if you watch the video, which I do have up on the Scarlet Faithful YouTube channel, his body language, his energy level, he just seemed kind of down, frustrated. Again, very refreshing. I actually loved seeing him more raw. But at the same time, this has been an interesting week. It's been a week where, and I've talked about it on Friday's podcast, and I wrote about it with BTN crew there. And my episode on Friday was don't overreact. The BTN crew was not optimistic that the offense was going to be able to throw the ball much. Again, just one practice. But now we're talking about the head coach, right? And obviously it was the first scrimmage. He said they were very sloppy to start. Early on, we were very sloppy, not very precise. Later in the scrimmage, we got better. I don't know if it was nerves or what it was. So that's listen, that it could be that. The real telling thing is going to be next Saturday, the second scrimmage. What is Schiano saying? How is he acting? How did they look for those that will be there? That will be key. And it's not open to the public, by the way. I just mean like in terms of how the media interprets that second scrimmage. It will be very, very telling. The wide receiver group was kind of a mixed bag. He said inconsistent, made some really fine plays, and then dropped some of the easy ones. Tight end, he didn't seem very high on. He was complimentary of Sean Bowman and Johnny Langan, but the way he answered it seemed like he felt like they had a long way to go. The offensive line, he didn't give too much comments on, just in terms of saying he didn't pay too much attention to it. I guess it is a positive that nothing stuck out in a bad way, just from general viewing during practice, but he did say he's going to obviously dive into the film. The defense, even, he wasn't negative on the primary defense. So he said the ones and twos were fine. He did mention that, there were no takeaways. That was the one thing with Gavin Wimsatt. He did say he struggled with accuracy, which was surprising. He was a bit sped up. But there were no takeaways. So it's a positive. Wimsatt didn't turn the ball over. The ones and twos didn't turn it over. But then you're looking at the ones and twos on defense, and they didn't turn it over. But Schiano did have some comments for the threes and fours and said he was pretty disappointed. So even when he was initially asked about the defense, he said, I thought the defense revelation right now, they're a little bit ahead. So he's been very positive about the defense. He mentioned there were a lot of penalties at one point. So all in all, I know that he said they went through a ton of reps. They pretty much played, full game for scrimmage. What do you make of it? It's you don't want to overreact, but I would say at this point, it's starting to feel like Rutgers getting to 6 wins. It's going to take a lot of improvement, and it certainly is possible. I think there's definitely 5 winnable games on the schedule. You have Northwestern, Temple, Virginia Tech, Wagner, and at Indiana. I think those are your 5 winnable. I think Michigan State at home and Maryland at the end of the season. Both of those are I think winnable. I think Michigan State definitely more so than Maryland. I just don't love Maryland at the skill positions is very athletic and very talented. The lines, not great. I don't think Loxley's a better coach than Schiano. I think that game is going to really come down to health being the last game of the season. Rutgers, won that game 2 years ago with Maryland having their third string quarterback. So that's going to be huge. But the Michigan State game is certainly, I think Rutgers could win. I'm not feeling confident this time. I mean, first of all, when you have 6 winnable games, it's very rare to win all 6. So that is in and of itself reason for, I think, a little bit of pessimism to think that they're going to win all 6. It's certainly possible. They could. But I think it's asking a lot, to be honest. I think that Virginia Tech is a swing game in game 3. That really can dictate how this season's going to go. If you go to 3-0, you go to the big house. I'm not saying they're going to beat Michigan, but you play with confidence. You play tough, and you come back, you got Wagner, and then you go into October. At Wisconsin is going to be very tough. But that Michigan State game is everything. And then at Indiana, back-to-back weeks, and then you have your bye. Now that's 7 and 8 week 7, week 8 for Rutgers. So again, health is absolutely huge in this thing in terms of what they can do ceiling wise. But I just think that Schiano's comments, I think the other thing to take away from Schiano's press comments, if you watch it, he didn't give a lot of confidence, but it's because of things he didn't say, right? He didn't talk a lot about progress. He didn't talk a lot about, I'm excited for this. He didn't use a lot of enthusiastic terms, and he didn't give off that energy either. So again, it's not like he didn't slam the team. He's not going to do that. He's a total pro. But again, it was kind of in the details in terms of how he spoke. He's not going to call players out specifically, but I thought that this also is a move. I mean, especially the defense. It's a veteran team. You have a lot of guys back. You do have some young guys worked in. You have some newcomers worked in. But I think that I don't think he strategically went into the press conference and said, "I'm going to motivate these guys by being brutally honest." I think it was a very natural, organic reaction to how he was speaking. I do think he probably feels more comfortable doing that, knowing the defense he has in terms of the veterans that are on there. And it certainly can't hurt, I think, in terms of motivating that defense. The offense, I think there's genuine concern. I think that he sees it, So I think he praised Shiraka this week, rightfully so. I think Platt Flaherty. I actually think it's funny. I actually think the offensive line might be okay. The fact that it sounds like the left side is pretty locked in at this point, with Holland Pierce at left tackle, Curtis Dunlap at left guard, both of them flipped from the right side. Then you have Ireland Brown at center. Those are pretty locked in. And then you have at guard, Mike Schiaffoni and Kobe Asamoah. And then at right tackle, Tyler Needham versus Kamar Missouri. I think, I don't know. I'm just guessing a bit, but based on what I've heard and what I've seen in the past, I think Kobe Asamoah has got huge upside. I really liked him. He started the last 3 games of the season as a true freshman. He's a big body. He's got to develop for sure. But I say, if it's close, I would go with him based on how much time he has available. Although Schiaffoni, is obviously, the veteran. So that'll be interesting to watch. And then Needham seems to have the upper hand on Missouri. But we'll see. But that right side is going to be huge. But I do think with Flaherty, there's going to be stability. It does seem like the plan is, and it hasn't always been the case in years past, to have all 5 go with the starting 5 and really stick with it. So that strategy at least is a positive. So we'll see. But tight end, receiver, and quarterback have all now gotten some comments that were inconsistent, and seems like there's a lot of work to do. So again, a lot can happen, a lot can change. I'm not saying it's panic time by any means, so please don't misconstrue that. But I thought that Saturday's press conference with Schiano was telling. I think that there's some reasons that he's frustrated, he's concerned. He hasn't really been calling out a lot of individual players in a positive, which he does sometimes. A lot of that is dependent on who the press is asking about. There wasn't a ton of that today, but I think that next Saturday is huge. That's the next time we'll hear from Schiano, and I think just in terms of will he harp on major improvement from this week? Again, it's great that the offense didn't turn it over. Wimsatt did have one touchdown to Langen. I'll include some of the video that was online. But overall, it's a work in progress. And I think now it's a question of how quickly can they develop further? And is it enough to close the gap? Is it enough to hit the ground running and take advantage of that September schedule? Because, it's interesting because if they had a really tough September, maybe that I don't know if that would be a positive, right? I think that could potential to not develop as well. They're playing opponents in September. I think they have a chance to get better week after week after week. But it's also a ton of pressure because these are all the winnable games early. You got to win these games. So it's an interesting situation. We'll see what happens. But it's certainly been an intriguing camp. It's for a coach that is so detailed and specific in terms of what he's willing to share and what he's not. I thought it was telling that he was a little bit more, I would say, open in terms of how he was showing himself in terms of his reaction to the scrimmage. That's all I have for now. Thank you for watching and listening once again here at The Scarlet Faithful.